Welcome back to Alchemical Astrology. Before we delve into the details of the mid-May lunation, I'd like to explain how eclipses actually occur in physical reality and what exactly are the lunar nodes. I've included diagrams for those who process information visually. First thing we need to know is the plane of the moon's orbit is inclined 5 degrees to the Earth's orbital plane around the sun, which is called the ecliptic. Twice a month, the moon crosses the ecliptic at points called nodes. When it travels from south to north, it's the ascending node, or dragon's head, also known as Rahu in Vedic astrology. And from north to south, it's the descending node, or Ketu. Our moon generally swings too far north or south of the ecliptic for any noticeable occlusion of light to be observed. That's why out of the 13 new moons and 12 full moons in 2022, we will only have 2 solar and lunar eclipses. An eclipse, from a geocentric perspective, occurs when the sun is close enough to a lunar node at the full or new moon phases. At a full moon, it is a lunar eclipse, and at a new moon, it is a solar eclipse. In other words, if the moon crosses one of its nodes when it goes new or full, there will be an eclipse. The eclipse season consists of approximately 35 days when at least 2 and possibly 3 eclipses take place. Typically, each season encompasses at least 2 eclipses. So generally, in one calendar year, you would have 2 eclipse seasons and 4 eclipses. Ultimately, this is all about alignments. For a solar eclipse, the sun, moon, and earth line up with the moon casting a shadow over the sun. For a lunar eclipse, the sun, earth, and moon line up with the earth casting a shadow over the moon. In order for a lunar eclipse to be visible, the moon has to be above the horizon. A solar eclipse is even harder to catch as it marks a very narrow path on the Earth's surface. In 2022, the middle of eclipse season falls on May 15th and again on November 4th. The May 16th eclipse is part of the Saros series 131. A Saros cycle, as conceived by the Babylonians, is a series of eclipses occurring at intervals of approximately 19 years, at which time the sun, moon, and earth return to nearly the same position, creating virtually identical eclipses. I will be doing a webinar elaborating on these cycles at a later date. There is usually a running theme associated with each cycle, and this is very relevant to mundane astrology. Case in point, the last time we had an eclipse in Scorpio, the UN denied access to documentation during an investigation on charges of corruption within a $100 billion humanitarian aid program. Meantime, inflation rates were a going concern with the Federal Reserve, and the former head of Credit Suisse First Boston Group, Frank Quattrone, was convicted on 3 charges of obstructing federal probes into hot tech stock offers. If this has parallels to our current situation, I wouldn't chalk it up to coincidence. 18 years prior still, we had the Chernobyl event in April of 1986, and prior to that, in April of 1968, we had the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and 2 months later, Robert Kennedy. This is ample proof, in my view, that this uncoiling of the dragon energy at the poles must never be taken lightly, and the placement in Scorpio can be considered characteristically intense in nature. Furthermore, this year, the lunar eclipse happens 1.5 days before the moon reaches perigee. That is, the closest the moon gets to the Earth, which gives it the designation of a supermoon, as it will appear larger than normal. Higher tides can be expected as a consequence, and those people living in coastal zones should take heed. The Earth's shadow will cover the moon entirely, and this total eclipse will last 90 minutes and be visible from South America, most of North America, Africa, and Western Europe as a rusty red color, hence the term blood moon. But I'm not a purveyor of doom and gloom, and the last 2 years has been burden enough for us all. The key here is to observe the celestial dynamics in order to prepare, plan, and take calculated action in order to manifest a desired result, since forewarned is truly forearmed. That brings us to our full analysis of the total lunar eclipse at 25 degrees of Scorpio on either May 15th or 16th, depending on the time zone in which you are located. In comparison to the new moon event on April 30th, when we had a dreamy stellium in the water sign of Pisces, and the luminaries anchoring these energies in the fixed earth sign of Taurus, we now have both benefics, Jupiter and Venus, in the action-oriented masculine fire sign of Aries. While the sun continues beaming its rays in the fixed earth sign of Taurus, conjunct the North Node, the moon is now in opposition, shining at her full capacity in the fixed water sign of Scorpio at the South Node. At the same time, Saturn at 24 degrees Aquarius is still squaring the nodes, keeping the karmic tension at full throttle. Wherever Saturn sits, the lead is sure to reside, as Saturn represents the material world and it rules this heavy metal. Those with natal planets in the fixed signs will be afforded the opportunity to make an evolutionary leap, if they are brave enough to walk towards that which they fear the most. Scorpio doesn't do anything in half measures. It's an all-or-nothing configuration, intense and extreme. The moon represents our emotions, so be prepared for a wellspring of feelings to surface from the depths. This is also the collective shadow work that must be addressed when the moon's light is cut off in the sign ruled by Pluto. What are you willing to sacrifice is the question we must all ask ourselves if we are to successfully navigate this celestial reboot. Rest assured that Pluto rewards the brave, and consider the fact that the moon at a mundane level also represents the people. The will of the people is being boosted by the power of a sextile between the moon and Pluto. At 28 degrees of Capricorn, the Lord of Death and Rebirth is retrograding over the final degrees of a sign it has occupied since 2008, the year of the Great Recession and housing market collapse in the U.S. Corruption, greed, abuse of power, tyranny, and despotic aims are all being revealed and dismantled until Pluto moves into Aquarius for good in January of 2024. This doesn't bode well for any political leaders who have skeletons in their closets. Pluto is also trining the Sun and a retrograding Mercury in its domain of Gemini, so all the dirty laundry is about to be aired publicly. Now is not the time to be keeping secrets, as disclosure is a key word for this whole year, both globally and personally. The age of Pisces is dissolving before our very eyes to make room for the new Aquarian era. Fanatical belief systems are falling away, and attempts to maintain centralization and control of the masses is failing. By this point, you're probably asking, so where's the gold and how do I achieve this personal transformation? Here's the deal. You're a spiritual warrior, Mars conjunct Neptune in Pisces, in a technocratic matrix, Saturn in Aquarius. If you can apply the catalytic Venusian energy juiced up by the higher love she garnered in Pisces in order to heal your early wounds of self-identity, conjunct Chiron in Aries, and spiral up an octave through the courage of an open heart, Leo, You can successfully rise above the drama playing out. Just like Plato's cave, you will finally emerge into the true sunlight. If you feel this is easier said than done, you're right. We are being asked to finally surrender the energy we have invested in toxic negativity until it has become our behavioral default. This paradigm shift is literally creating two worlds in the same space-time continuum. If you choose to opt into a digital matrix, then you are complying with the control mechanism of Saturn that is offering security in exchange for freedom. If you prioritize your sovereignty, then you are part of Camp Uranus. Remember that the Saturn-Uranus square is still in effect and will again be within a degree of orb from September 15th through October 23rd of this year. Either way, it is unquestionably a pivotal moment in the history of our species. Bear in mind, as you encounter this polarization, that diamonds are only created through intense pressure and heat. To add one more crucial factor to this space odyssey, as the moon is being eclipsed, she is in closest proximity to the fixed star Kakab Sugub Gut Elim in the modern constellation of Lupus. Why this is important, in my view, is that fixed stars represent the spirit's journey. Unlike the orbiting planets, these points of light serve as laser beams that magnify and modify the planet that is in proximity. This constellation represents an animal slain by the spear brandished in Centaurus's hand. The Alpha star, located in the paw of the beast, has the nature of both malefic Saturn and Mars. The implication here is that an acquisitive, aggressive, and treacherous energy is vanquished at the hand of the just warrior. We may be in for a rough ride, but there appears to be a happy ending to this narrative. Another opportunity for metamorphosis is offered by Jupiter's ingress into Aries. Wherever 0 degrees Aries falls in your natal chart, you are being granted a catalytic expansion into a new way of being. If you're not sure what house the first sign of the zodiac lands in your chart, feel free to email me at melusine@spiritreading.ca, and I will be happy to provide you the details for your future reference. Those of you oriented towards the crystal kingdom, if you are bold and fearless, you can introduce some Malachite into your space and watch the purging begin for real, as this is a stone most capable of getting you unstuck in a hurry, and it is very thorough in its capacity to flush negative energy from your fields. Its beautiful emerald green swirls activate the heart. Be sure to cleanse it with a soft cloth and water periodically to ensure its protective qualities are at peak efficiency, and be sure it is kept dry due to its copper content. Lastly, let's bring in the plant kingdom. In particular, a shrub related to the mint family, whose flowers are either blue, pink, or white. The hysope has been used since ancient times as an antiseptic and digestive aid. Native to southern Europe, this herb is mentioned several times in the Bible and was thought to repel the plague and purify the home. The Hebrews used it to protect themselves from the angel of death at Passover. Carry a sprig of it in your pocket to deflect any negativity. A fitting choice, as it is under Jupiter's good graces, and as such corresponds to the element of air, to boost our mental faculties while we open our hearts. So until next time, I salute you spiritual warriors out there on your quest towards wholeness and strength of purpose in a new world.